welcome, Brian. It's great to have you with us for our half-time feature. Given our fondness for your time as a Rovers player and your links to Morton, we thought you were the obvious choice. So we're going to cover both teams in a bit of depth, and just a wee bit of advance mention that I've got a young lad joining us in maybe kind of 10 or 15 minutes. I'm expecting him just to observe the interview that's going on. So he'll just kind of quietly join us, and our admin will let him in. So first starting point really is to ask you about Raith Rovers as one of your former clubs. Looking through a bit of research for the piece, it seems that you've got really kind of fond memories of your time in Kirkcaldy.
Yeah, first and foremost, thanks for having me on. Yeah, definitely. Loved the place. Obviously, the first year was a bit blighted with injuries, but second year I really kicked on and started to really enjoy my football. And it was quite funny because it's the only time where I've scored that many goals in a season. And obviously I was out of contract at the end of the season. Grant Murray pulls me in the office and he's like, right, Brian, I know you're going to leave, but I need to offer you a contract. So I'm like, right, okay, what's this? So he puts the contract in front of me and it was a pay cut. I couldn't believe it. He says to me, I know you're not going to sign it, but club's financially well aware at the time and that's the best we can do. So me and him had a laugh about it and joke, but he knew I was planning on leaving anyway. I've always wanted to go and try myself in the Premier League, and the opportunity came with Dundee United, and there was a few teams in England who tried to get me, but always said that I wanted to play in the Premier League in Scotland. That was, as a kid, that's where I wanted to go, and I always thank Raith Rovers for giving me the chance to play at the club, and bearing in mind that club got me there.
That's a very Raith Rovers move, I have to say. One of the things that I picked up on was this kind of concept that were you a wee bit surprised with the size of Raith Rovers when you arrived? You came from Morton, but I've read that you spoke about the size of the club and the energy of the supporters. Maybe took you aback a wee bit.
Yeah, listen, I'd known they'd beat Celtic all the years ago in the League Cup final. As a young kid growing up watching Celtic, I kind of remember that game, and I knew a bit about Raith Rovers, but if I'm being honest, I didn't know too much. But when you go through and you see obviously I'd played there against them before that, but when you go through as one of their players, you go in the door, it's quite old-fashioned, the tiles and the doors, and it's like it's a real football ground, you know what I mean? And obviously the two big stands, and they were a big club, and when we were doing well in some games, the crowd would turn up in their numbers and made a big noise, and started thinking to yourself, this is actually a good club. If they could start doing well, then the fans would start coming back, and that was a challenging time for me at the club. Financially, they weren't great when I just arrived, and I think if they would went up the year before, things might have been a totally different story. But they have got potential, and I'm glad. I always keep an eye on them. John McGlynn's back there now, and I've got a few ex-players that I know are there as well, and I always keep in contact with them and ask them how they're getting on and stuff. And it's a club that I would really wish to do well, and hopefully one day they get themselves back up to the Premier League.
Brilliant. We almost a wee quiz question for you here. We were kind of having a wee bit of chat on our way back from the Stirling Albion game last night, and we think that you might be the only Raith Rovers player in our history who is only known by a set of letters. There's only two employees at Raith Rovers. One is SJM, which any Raith Rovers fan typing it knows is Super John McGlynn. So it's almost like autocorrect. So HSWHW. That's the only letters.
He scores when he wants.
He scores when he wants, and I want to make sure that you knew about that. When did you become aware of that?
I actually didn't know about that there. I remember they used to sing that song when I was there. Yep. So it just clicked in my head there that that's what it was. I didn't actually know that. That's the first time I've heard that.
How does it make you feel?
It's actually taking me aback, to be honest with you, but I had a good relationship with the fans. Obviously, when you go to a club and you're doing well, you get that relationship. Obviously, whatever club you're at, you can never keep everybody happy. It's impossible, but the majority of the fans were wishing me well and willing me good. So I think that's why it worked so well. I felt at ease at that club, and as I said, I loved my time there. First year, I got injured, but came back, and I think my goals scored near the tail end of the season after I came back, basically kept them up in the division that year. And then the year after that, I was scoring a lot of goals, but we weren't really seen to be going anywhere on the table, which is very frustrating.
Yeah, certainly that first season. I mean, 15 goals playing with a hernia was no small feat. I mean, how were you coping with injury through that first season?
it was difficult, but then it got to the stage where I was playing in games and I felt as if I couldn't really jump, and I was kind of holding back, and spoke to the gaffer and the physio at the time, and it was quite surreal. It was like I'd been full time, obviously with Morton, we had a full time physio, but Pud at the time was part time physio, and
of course.
So I was going on a Monday and to basically treat myself, and I remember when I was starting to run again, I was in the back room, just a white wall with a running machine, and I would be on the running machine right next to this white wall, just staring at it going, what the hell is this? Ice run. It was quite hectic, but it's just the way it was, and you just got on with it.
It's certainly been done up a wee bit in recent years, but it certainly was quite a kind of grim rehab area at Stars Park, wasn't it?
It was challenging, to say the least, but
very delicate, Brian.
No, it was challenging, but listen, I got through it in the end, and I came back and hit the ground running when I came back, and just the confidence, you get back early and you score early after an injury like that, just what you keep wanting games, and I've probably felt the season finished too early for me that year, because I felt as if I was just really up and running. 29
goals, including friendlies across that season, is no mean feat.
No, I've not done it again, so it must have been a lucky season.
What about when you arrived at Raith Rovers? I was looking through players that are still here now. Obviously, we've got David McGlynn as goalkeeping coach. I would have imagined that you would have known David from your time at Morton. You might have overlapped there, but there's also a 15-year-old young lad when you joined Lewis Vaughan. Did you see the talent that he possessed?
I did, and listen, he was a good young lad. Did I expect him to go and do that? Probably not. I feel really bad for him because of his injuries. After he'd done it again recently, like I went through to John Baird was playing back at the club, and I went through to watch them against Peterhead, and Willie was there, and I got to speak to him, and I was just like, listen, I was just trying to keep your head up and don't let it affect you too much. I know it's probably really difficult, and it's easy for me saying that to you, but you've up your talents there, so you'll get yourself back. And luckily he's back, I see, in the squad and stuff like that now, and getting the odd game now and again, so hopefully he can stay injury free and move on, because he has got the potential to make the club money.
Well, you mentioned about John, that first season, the only season that he's actually played together, but a kind of 30-goal partnership. We'll obviously kind of dwell on that quite a wee bit. Tell me about that partnership. I guess every manager tries to put this jigsaw together, work out the conundrum of what makes a good partnership. Is it organic? Is it chemistry?
It was weird because I didn't know him at all. Obviously, I knew who he was, but I didn't know him personally. And I remember I went and met him and Willie Dyer out at the new house to travel through with him to go to training. And I felt as if Baird, I don't know if he felt threatened because I was a striker, but he was a wee bit off with me when I first got in the car, right? So I was thinking to myself, here we go. He's going to be one of them. And then when we got to know him, I knew how his character was in training and stuff like that, started to like him. And then one day we were playing at Hamilton, we had a big burst up, shouting and bawling at each other, telling each other we're going to punch each other's heads off at half time. And then the next minute the ball comes down the line up at one in, putting his head, and then the rest is history. We just clicked, and we're still really close friends to him to this day. I was on the Zoom call to him the other day, just when he was in Australia, and still daily there's a text and still a phone call. I still probably say he's the biggest friend I've had in football. I've been in numerous holidays with him, and he's a bit of a bonkers head case, but I end up, this is quite crazy and soppy to say, but I ended up falling in love with him, man. He was brilliant. He was just a top guy.
Yeah, I mean, I think John knows the high regard that we all hold him in. We just before we went to Australia, we done what we thought was going to be about a 20-minute interview that lasted about an hour and a half. I watched it. And I'm glad you get the chance to see it because
it was emotional.
It was emotional.
I was emotional watching it.
And it was actually emotional for us all. There was a bit that we couldn't film because it just wasn't quite appropriate. But looking over John's shoulder and seeing these kids running about the pitch in the Raith Rovers tops with their dad speaking about the fondness for the club and players that he's played with, it was quite special. It was certainly one of our kind of most commented on videos. So in terms of the partnership, one season, is there a we always somewhere?
Because we always we end every season, we'd go away with each other for a couple of days, and we'd always be drunk obviously over there, and we'd say, what is coming on? We're like, why could we not join up again? And it was quite surreal, and it was I'm actually taking aback he's just come on the call, to be honest with you, but it was one of the things that we said maybe one day we'll get together again, and it just never ever happened.
Well,
it was probably for the best because we're probably the fell out.
Well, we kind of kept that up our sleeve a wee bit. How are you doing, John?
Bit tired.
This is the young man who's joining us. This is the reason we moved the interview from 8 o'clock to 9, because it was 4 o'clock in the morning, but John's got up at 5 o'clock in the morning, so it's to give him a wee bit of sleep. But we wanted to get John on just to get you back together and pull a wee surprise on you both. John, we're talking about that one season, 30 goals between you and the relationship you built up on the pitch and off the pitch. Starks Park and the ground staff put in a revolving door for you. Did you ever try and get Brian Graham to come through that door and join you again?
I obviously would have loved it to happen, but it was just at stages in my career, it was in totally different. It just went in different ways. I never felt it was really going to happen, to be honest. Just where Brian was in his career at that time and where I was at Raith Rovers, and back and forward for Raith Rovers, I suppose. But we always met up at the end of the season for a flight somewhere, so it was always quite good that way.
Brian was telling us about a key moment in your friendship. Was it half time at Hamilton where what was said?
Just before it.
Just before the game.
Just before I set him up. It was during the game. I set him up, and then that was it. As I said, the rest was history. We'll just best mates after that. And
what's your recollection, John?
It was just that you're getting it in the dressing room type of thing at half time, and then obviously I get lucky enough. Well, Brian was lucky enough that I scored with my shin to the volley. The funniest bit was for me was the weekend after Brian's first goal for Raith Rovers, because he was getting a bit frustrated and stuff like that. We're doing it Queen of the South, and Brian's went through and dinked the goalkeeper. But myself, Brian, and Stevie Reynolds, we all travelled together. We went out after the game. So I've went to Brian's house. We got a Chinese. And then we're walking by, going to the train station to get the train into the house, train into the town. And the two of us, I think, were looking brilliant. People are looking at us, beating the horn and all that, they laugh. But the two of us were dressed the exact same. The cream chinos on and a denim shirt.
Aye, with a white t-shirt. I remember it because my missus had that iron my clays. You had your clays in your bag. You'd pulled your gear out, and I went, I'm not getting changed. My gear's set out. I'm wearing what I was wearing. And he's got the same gear, and then photo the dogs, whatever, and then we see people laughing at us on the train. We just went, oh, who cares? Just went and got drunk that night and had a right good laugh. But it was funny looking back on, but pair of idiots.
Tell us about the travel. How important is the cash skill in amongst football squads? Because we always hear about certain people travel together, build up bonds, that actually move between different clubs and they keep in contact. How important is the travelling, and who shouted the pedal?
No, we all just took our turn of driving at each car. We just change it every day. But I think the people I've probably kept close contact with has always been people who have travelled with in the car, because you're with them 19% of the time you're at a football club, and obviously you speak to the other players, but when you're in that car school, you've got a different kind of bond to the dressing room. And I was lucky enough to have Baird, Willie Dyer, and then Stevie Reynolds eventually joined us. But I had a right good car school and still speak to the boys to this day.
The car school, definitely, because they see the emotion, the disappointment, the aggravation every day. A good training session, bad training session. Very seldom do you get everybody in the car having a good day. It's just sometimes you got 3 of them
starting and then one wasn't playing, and then you were trying to get his heat up. And it was probably telling him he was rotten and you're on the bench for a reason, but that was just the stick he would take. It happened to us all. You just had to take the rough with the smooth.
What was the high point of your partnership at Starks Park? I
would probably say the best game was Falkirk away. I know what Billy didn't score that day, but he set me up for my hat-trick goal, and it was a big 3 points, because I think that was the 3 points that probably kept us up that season.
That's right.
I scored, and then I scored a penalty, and then it was ball came up, it bounced, and then you'd put me back through, and I kind of half volleyed it in the top corner into Michael McGovern. And I just remember that day, it was just, we clicked that day, just everything we done came off, and come off thinking to myself, that was a really good game that day. What was it McGlynn used to call us? What was it? The two strikers. He called us two strikers.
Amazing and rubbish.
I can't even remember.
See, my best game was probably Morton at home. So it was the 5-0 game, because I knew how much that meant to you. I was at a different stage in my time with Raith Rovers, but I knew how much that meant. That was 5-0 game, wasn't it? You scored 2.
I scored 2, aye. That just flashed up the other day, aye. What was that, 10 years ago? I couldn't believe it, how far back it was. How time flies.
And your wee daughter tattooed on your arm.
Aye, Sophia.
That game. Yeah.
I think that was the Queen of the South game, that one.
Oh, was it?
I think that was Queen of the South. Because I think big mate McGuffey was playing that day and I nudged him and scored. I always remember laughing at him.
That would have been easy. Wouldn't be hard.
What about best goal, Brian?
I think it was, see, to be honest with you, it could be my left foot goal in the Kevin Beef Cup final. What was that? Was that Cup final? Don't know what it was, but Fife Cup, that's what it was. I don't know where that came from. That was about 30 yards out, left foot right in the top corner. But I think it was either that one. I always go back to the free kick against Devonville.
That was the one I was going to raise, yep.
Because my wee nephew, Tyrese, at the time was there with my dad and my uncle. I was sitting right at that wee bit, obviously in the old stand, and I think we were down to 10 men or something.
Yeah, Doig had been sent off. It
was going to a replay. I don't know where I got that for. I'd never hit free kicks. I've managed to put one in the top corner. I don't know what happened that season. Whatever I hit, they were going in. And it was just, sometimes you get seasons like
that. I spoke to you after that game. I remember speaking to you after the game, and I said, how did it go? And you went, Baird. It was like Beckham against Greece.
That's probably what I said.
And I'm on the phone, I'm going, Devonville, Beckham against I just summed Brian up, man. I was sitting there, I seen it. I think you'd might Puma Kings on, actually.
I think it was my Pelly Sports ones when I was doing that boot
That's
deal.
It was
black and white, the zebra boots. Oh, terrible they were. Terrible. Pelly Sports, unbelievable. Terrible.
You've cued me in for one of my questions, because one of the things that the Scottish games often kind of run down, particularly kind of media down south, but if you're part of it, our game is brilliant and it's got so many wee twists and turns and quirky wee stories. And the idea that Pelly Boots came looking for Brian Graham to be their brand ambassador, go and tell people that story, because I don't think it's that going on.
I remember my agent phoning me up saying, right, we've got you a deal, boot deal, closed deal. I was like, right, okay. Who is it? He's like, Pelly. I remember laughing at him on the phone. I said, away you go, Pelly. I thought he was at the wind-up. He's like, listen, be it one Devonshire Gardens. I know, boyfriend with mullet. Be it one Devonshire Gardens in the West End tomorrow. We're doing a media conference. I went, right. He's like, wear a suit. I think I had my dad's suit on, which was a bit big for me, this grey suit. So I went along, a bit nervous, just had to go with the flow. The next minute, I know Joe Jordan's there and he's presenting me with these boots. So it was surreal, but I remember the boy Kenny Ramsey, the photographer. I think he works for the Sun. So there was a couple of photographers and they were taking photos of me with these boots, this angle, that angle, right? And I'm going, and he's like, right, put them on your head outside next to a tree. I says, Kenny, there's absolutely no chance I'm putting these boots in my head. He's like, what do you mean? I said, I'm not looking stupid here. I says, take your picture of me holding a boot here. I'm not putting a boot on my head. And then I could see my agent and another guy, Russell, killing themselves laughing at me refusing to put these boots in my head. But looking back, it was double spreading the paper and we guys from all getting Pelly Sport boots. It's actually mental to think that I got that.
I think your dad wore the boots to work.
I think he used to wear the hoodie to work. To be fair, he had a Morton track he told when I used to give him it, and I swear to God, see when I was younger, I think he just was proud that his boy played football. I swear to God, he never had this Morton tracky top off, by the way. Wore it constantly. Everywhere he went, he wore this Morton tracky top. I was affronted by it. I was like, you need to get it off, dude.
You need to get it off, dude. Play with children.
John, Pelly, we ken that he's an ambassador for lots of different products. Has he ever sent you any freebies?
No, No, not at all. Perry didn't know who I was. I don't think
Did he know who I was?
I'm going to go troll the internet when we're editing this together. We'll certainly find the Devon Vale goal, but I'm not sure we'll find a clip of Pelly talking about Brian Graham, but we'll give it a go.
Absolutely no chance.
Go on, both of you, tell us a wee bit about the guys that he's played under as well as alongside. So tell us a wee bit about John McGlynn. Tell us a wee bit about Grant Murray. Grant obviously moved from kind of playing to coaching, but it was John that kind of brought you to the club, wasn't it, Brian?
John brought me to the club, and it was only had that one season, and then he was obviously went to Hearts. But I remember going, I think it was pre-season. You'd get in the car. I don't know where we went to train, but it was just like an open field. Went and trained there, doing the exercises, doing the training, and then the next minute McGlynn would go into shape mode, and that was it. And then, but it was weird. We used to speak about it as players. Like, it didn't matter if you were playing or you weren't playing. The boy who was coming on knew their job. Like, we used to say, well, robots. He had this drilled that well, and if he made the mistake, he was on you like a rash. One day, lost it in the changing room, and I think he was punching the door out, and he nearly slid down it, falling out of breath. But
that's right. So he did. Remember that?
Went nuts. And you just seen him leaning into the door. You're like, nudging each other. You all right over there? But I've got a lot of time for John McGlynn. He's everywhere I've went, he's wished me well and kept in contact with me. And he's just a lovely guy, but he also had that mean side to him. But there was a story. I went in one morning, I was early. He was in fixing the tiles in the toilet. I was like, what are you doing, Gaffer? He's like, these tiles need fixing, I need to get them fixed. No other managers would do that. He was just a right good guy.
The first time I met John McGlynn wasn't at a kind of press reveal. He was on top of the minibus fitting a roof rack. And somebody just kind of one of the directors pointed up and says, there's a new manager. And, and I have interviewed him, and then he's taken me in and says, look, I've seen the tiles that he's fixed, I've seen the shower that he's fitted, I've seen the soap dishes that his wife's went and bought for the changing room. So he's, I think, lives one of Raith Rovers. Yeah.
He's a great guy, and like, people don't understand how technical he is with the football game. I remember before video analysis came into it, he used to have us in a wee room. He would go to games with this wee handheld camera, and he'd put it. It was like back at school. You'd roll this big telly in, and he'd get this wee cord camera, and he'd plug it in, and you're like, Gaffer, can't I see it? Hold on a minute. Need to zoom it in and all that. He was actually, I think it was a game. I might have been Albion Rovers against somebody we were going to play a cup game, and he went to this game. He's in the old Albion Rovers stand. You can't even see it, and it's like the lights don't even work. And he's standing there like that with this wee camera. He was just bonkers. But he was. Everything was done. Everything was done.
Standing with the camera.
He was very thorough at his job.
John McGlynn's. I can't speak highly enough of him. See, for the first time, it was about 10, 12 years ago, whenever it was, when I was at Raith, under him, he was set up, robots, it was robots. And we knew your job, and everybody kind of like knew their set role and stuff like that, and where to be. And I've see, because of that grounding, I've struggled when I've went to other teams and people aren't doing their job. I think actually I'm quite moany.
No, I think I'm the same as that. No, like, I felt over my career. I'm quite moany on the pitch, but you have to have certain players around about you that can accept it or want to do the job. Like, I had that grounding after Morton with him, and like, if we as we said, well, robots, everybody just knew they had to put a shift in. We weren't technically a good team, and we had to work hard to stay in the division or whatever, but everybody knew their role in the team. And it was, that's where I probably the same as you, like, I'm probably a moaning face. Get on the pitch, and I think that's probably one of the reasons why, because that was drilled into you that that's your job, make sure it's done, make sure you're speaking to other players, pulling them in. Like, we were a striker partnership, so one would go, one would step in. If it went across, we knew instantly you would go, and I would fall into the deep line midfielder. You just knew how it worked.
Just basic stuff. Like see even like we did a game last night. The striker never went and sat in the centre mid, the deepest centre mid once. And I get booked last night for shouting at main strikers, for shouting at main players. the referee booked us, and I was like, he said a wee bit because of language and stuff like that. And I went, this is your German, you don't even know what I'm saying. And I started saying, I can tell it's an aggressive manner. So it was, but see, when I went back to John McGlynn there, honestly, there's no many times I would say tactically through my career that he's blew my mind. We played Partick Thistle away in the cup against ourselves, Brian, and we played a Christmas tree, and so it was like a 4-3-2-1, and then it was me and Big Stephen McLean were off Siggy, and then when we were with the ball, us two were going into centre midfield, and Dylan Tate was going left, and I think it was Ross Matthews or Brad Spencer was going left. Gone right, one of the two, and it was just like Thistle couldn't cope with it. Know where that came from? His knowledge about going, you're in Europe and all the other stuff. I think he watched it first with Bruce Simmons and Black, I think it was. But you were talking about guys who ended up, I do want to try and pronounce their name, the Chelsea centre half, something like that. He was telling us that's what, like Benedictus, that's what he does. He steps in it, and I'm going, he's saying, he thinks this guy's Benny's the guy who plays with Chelsea, and then it was what ridiculous.
He did have a side of madness to him, but you see a lot of genius are mad.
Training. I went and we still had the roll up the sleeve side with the runs on the Tuesday, but see everything else totally changed. Like we went for structured, know your job, all the rest of it. No, I wouldn't say straight lines, but it was like that. That's when you are just black and white to like, rotation, man. It took me about 6 or 7 weeks to get the grips of it. So I did actually thought I was like, this is, because it wasn't what I was used to. The last spell there with him, I was gobsmacked, to be honest, with some of the stuff he did. You could never read them. Couldn't read his substitutions, whereas back today you could. You know what I mean? Every time I was a sub, I think he hardly put his own. He only put his own about twice when I was a sub. Must have caused my face was tripping me. It's like, I'm not putting that on.
It's interesting, John, that you're saying it took a wee while for you to kind of find your stride when you came back that last time there, because certainly, from a fan's perspective, there was, the kind of obvious shout of change at McGlynn, and, every football fan's an expert, and every football fan thinks he knows better. But actually, when you are in the company of somebody who has such a deep understanding of the game, it's hard actually, as somebody who interviews a manager or tries to represent what a manager's thinking, to actually get across the depth of knowledge that they have. When people are saying, why doesn't he play up top? Why does he not do this? Why does he not do that? And you're left in a position of thinking, do you not think he's maybe considered that? Because he's actually he's forgotten more than you know. And so it's interesting to hear both of you saying that.
I think teams, like we played 4-4-2 last year as well. We struggled with it. And see, with my coaching over in Australia, there's like 3 or 4 teams I look over, and one of them, I never told the teams what formation to play, and one of them picked 4-4-2, and they struggle with it. Really struggle with it. Now they've changed to 4-3-3. I don't think kids know how to play a 4-4-2. Now they'll say it's down to the coaching it. It's because they watch football on the telly. Nobody plays 4-4-2. So they don't know.
When we were kids, it was 4-4-2. Celtic were something in Larson.
Totally
and all the other your partnerships and I used to love watching Man United as a kid. Dwight York, Andy Cole. How I used to watch their movement, and I just think to myself, I would try and replicate. I would try and do that on the pitch, like out with my pals, and that's how you learn things. But is it nowadays modern day football? It's actually quite boring to watch. And when my wee boys watching football, I say to them, "That's no real football, son. That's not how it works. It's not all this nicey passy. That doesn't happen in Scottish football." When he kind of laughs at me.
This is see like talking about strikers and stuff like that, and how I would class you as an out-and-out striker, right? I couldn't have played in a 4-3-3. I couldn't have played in the one up front. I did nearly later in my career, but that's where me and you were told you could do that with your back to goal. I had to go and play. I would have to have been a midfielder.
Aye.
No, if I was starting now, I would be a midfielder. I would be in a 4-3-3 in with the 3. Definitely, I wouldn't have made a career. Just the way the
I've done it, but I didn't like it. I always prefer the partner.
Everybody does. It's like centre halves don't like a free at the back because they get isolated and they want somebody they know will be there all the time for him.
Aye, next to him.
But it's changed. It's totally changed. It's just the way it is. Centre halves don't want fullbacks that run forward, but a fullback's a winger now. He's
It's a given, isn't it? We've seen that last night.
He's actually further up. He's actually further up. They're actually further up the pitch more than
The wingers, because the wingers come in the pitch.
Right. Aye, wingers as well. No,
And that's certainly something John favours a lot, isn't it?
Keir McDonald, and when I was there, Mikey Miller, the goals they got. Whereas, see before, I think Willie Dyer got 1 goal in 2 years or something, and Craig Wilson first year, and Bertie maybe pick up that assist, but it was a back 4.
What about Grant Murray? We move on after John left the kind of first time. Well, Grant obviously took us to the cup final. I'm right in saying, Brian, that you were at the cup final. I've got a big memory of seeing you
I was there.
Yeah.
I was there. Me and my wee mate went through. Baird had sorted a couple of tickets, went through, and I was just behind his family. And see when he scored, I was flaring up. I seen all his family all emotional and it hit me. I had a big lump in the throat, and I was just so proud of him because I know what he's like, and there's no hiding the fact that he was a Celtic fan growing up, and I was a Celtic fan growing up, and that is a dream as a young kid to go and score against Rangers in a cup final and beat them, and the wee man done it, and he's a hero for it, and he'll always be remembered for it. Nobody can ever take that away from him, regardless of what he's done in his football career or regardless of what he does the rest of his life. But he's always known for that goal, and he's a legend at the club, and rightly so. And it was a special day. I remember I was as high as a kite going home in the car. He said to me, "Why don't you come through to Kirkcaldy?" I was like, "No, that's you, family. That's your moment. I'm going home." But I went home. I floated home in the car that night. It was brilliant. What a feeling it was. I felt as if I was on the pitch myself. It was mental.
And great for Grant. I mean, as it stands just now, one of only 2 managers that's won a trophy at national level. What about the role of Paul Smith in there? Because he's kind of bridged with John and with Grant. What was Paul's role?
Smudger was a guy. He would always try and come and cheer you up. Like if you weren't playing or you were playing, he would always be in your ear. He was constantly running about the squad and about it. Like I wouldn't say John was standoffish, but he was more straight faced. And whether Smudger, you could get a laugh and a joke and stuff like that. And I definitely think he did help Grant as well, and he's back at the club again. So he had a great relationship with all them.
The biggest compliment you can give Smudger is I feel that when the manager probably went to Hearts and Livingston, he felt it that Smudger wasn't there. Do you know what I mean? It's a right hand man. It's a guy that you trust, and it's no surprise that when the two of them are together again, that Raith Rovers have actually started to get to a position that they should be at least expected. The club was, when John McGlynn left, and I know Smudger was still involved in it, but he never had the same input when he was involved with other managers. He didn't. It changed to full time. He was kind of just to be there on a Saturday and stuff like that. It took a bit of onus away from him. I felt where he was. If he went full time with the manager, it would have been a lot different. The year that we struggled.
So I know that you've got away kind of end of season and such, like it might be a wee bit more difficult now you're over in Australia, but I'm going to set you up for a barroom argument or a Zoom argument. Looking at the stats, John Baird, 45 Raith Rovers goals. Brian Graham, 44 Raith Rovers goals.
I can't believe we've not got 50 goals.
However,
man, you've been back 6 times. What chance have we got?
However, John Baird, 131 games. Brian Graham, 82. So there's one for you to debate over whether it's how many times the ball hits the net or if it's goals per minute. As a Rovers fan, we're just waiting for them all.
Every time the ball hits the net, it matters. Doesn't matter how many games it takes you to get there.
See, this is a question we always get when we're on holiday with my mates. Who was the best striker, right? That's what you're getting at with this, right? Who's the best? Totally different players. What I would say is the best striker is Brian's a striker. I was never a striker like that. I think that the stats sum that up. I wasn't obsessed about goals the way he was.
No,
I'm saying that as a compliment. It was goals. He could have a nuke, and it doesn't matter as long as you've got a couple of goals or got a goal. It's all right, I scored. No, but your performance would annoy you. But when you go out the motor, it would be, it's all right, I scored, doesn't matter.
I've always been like, even when I was a kid at school and playing school football, boys club football, I just love scoring goals. I still do to this day. I'm just not scoring as many as I used to.
I mean, it's incredible. You mentioned earlier on one of the last games that we actually played with supporters there was the cup semi-final. You're on the pitch together. We fast forward this period of time. Final still not being played. Who knows if it will be played? What was your memories of that particular day? John mentioned about the formation, but from a kind of Thistle perspective, what was that night like?
As much as it was, I was obviously new at the club, and obviously we all know what happened when we got relegated, which was really frustrating in my part, because I don't think we would have, but that's for another day. But on that night, I think Raith came out the blocks really well that night, and they probably took us aback at how well they started the game. And Baird was unlucky not to score that night. I think Foxy had a great save for him as well. Even though I think Raith thought they had the game won, they took McGlynn and took Baird off. And then I think that flipped the full game, because they couldn't get out. The two older heads up the park, then they had a few younger boys on the pitch, and they couldn't get out, and we kind of were well on top. And I think I brought one down in the box, and I put boy Austin in, and he should score. And he tries to beat a man when he should just shoot. And I remember chasing somebody back to the halfway line. The whistle goes, and then I just lose the plot at this boy Austin, because he should have scored.
I'm watching you. I stopped watching the game and watching you.
I know I've
watched the game back when we
came. It's a semi-final. It was a chance to get a cup final, and I was spewing.
I knew it was coming. I'm laughing. I
ran half a length of the pitch. I was like, I wanted to kill him in the dressing room. I was raging. He should score. It's a goal.
See that game? I would say that's the best performance. I'm digging myself up here, but that's the best performance I had for Raith Rovers.
I think you wanted to go back there and show them what you were all about.
That night, see, you were talking about starting at the blocks and all that. That comes with preparation on the training ground. It comes from being organised. It comes from being set up. When I've got involved in management myself, you can tell the teams that have been drilled and know their jobs.
Aye.
Instead of waiting 15, 20 minutes to start, this and that. And we knew, honestly, I had visualisation to the game for about 3 days, knowing where I'd be, knowing where other players would be. We very seldom had to look up to get anybody the ball, whereas usually we're a new squad, try to piece it together, probably get players that when they've been here, part of the Thistle, playing the game. Left backs playing centre mid and all that. Do you know what I mean?
That was mad.
It was just a night that I knew that we could get a grip of our championship team, and the boys could prove, because they were championship players in that team.
No, they've proved it this year as well. They've kept right on.
By far, with the second in the league, third in the league. I've lost touch. I had a few drinks on Saturday, so I've not looked any of the results. The phone's been stuck down.
Brian, I'm going to ask you a wee bit about, obviously we're going to put this piece together for a game against Morton. Give us a wee bit of your memories at Morton. I know, John, you spent a wee bit of alone time there as well, but was it kind of 5 years that you were there, Brian? A club that you've got fond memories of. I was interested in one of your interviews where you said that you saw similarities between Morton and Rovers in terms of stature, size, fan base, etc.
No, definitely. I think Morton at the time, I would probably describe them as a sleeping giant, because a lot of people in Greenock actually support Morton, and they just never ever got back up to the Premier League. Well, they would probably fill the stadium every second week. But it was a funny relationship I had at Morton. Like Douglas Ray, the chairman, was brilliant with me, and God rest him, but he took a shine to me and liked me, and the Crawford family did as well. And I remember when he passed away and I was going back to play a game, and his son was doing the programme, and he put in his dad's favourite player was me, and it was quite touching to read that. But I always remember at Morton, I was they'd lost their manager, and I was out of a contract, and I was young at the time, so I was sweating, I was panicking. I remember getting home to my granny's house, and I was sitting and pacing up in the living room, because I was a young boy, football was all I knew, and I didn't know what I was going to do. So then the phone went a couple of days later. We didn't have a manager, and the chairman says, "Listen, I'm going to give you a new deal." And I says, "But we've not got a manager yet." He said, "Don't worry about it. I'm giving you another year. come in on Monday, sign it. So I was like, thank God, I'm going to sign it. We'll deal with the manager when it comes. But we Alan Moore came in, and I always remember this. It was snowing, so we couldn't train outside, and we weren't going particularly well. I think a few of the fans were getting on his back, and we were doing it at Greenock in a 5-a-side indoor, and I was running about. Everything I hit was getting in. And me, Moody was he was a character. He's running about shouting, "You're going to save my job," and I was at a contract, and I'm shouting to him, "No, you're going to save my job," just having a laughing joke. But I done something stupid when I was younger at Morton. I used to read the fans' forums, right? So stupid. Because you can't please them. You can't please everybody.
No.
And I remember I was just a young boy come through the club, and it didn't matter right from wrong. I'd always this one section that were giving me dogs abuse, right? So I was like, it was getting to me. I could feel it building up, right? So I remember we were playing Dumbarton in a cup game, and I was on the bench. It was 0-0, and I came on, scored a header at Dumbarton, and I ran up to them, did that to them. But it was just, they've obviously known I've read it, but they're giving me absolute stick. And I was just a young kid coming through the club. I felt as if at the time they should have been backing me, even though if I had the odd bad game, because I was a young boy. I was always going to happen. I wasn't a finished article there. I was always going to make mistakes. But I just felt, for whatever reason, there was a section of the crowd that just didn't like me. And then
but your family's in the stands, wasn't it?
I know.
I know how much better the game. Is people surprised you get that reaction? Do you know what I mean? Supporters, how can they complain about somebody giving them a bit back? It's because he cares.
I'm like that. I'm a sort of guy that's face to face, see a problem and walk away. So when I was stupid, I would never do that now. I'm older and more experienced, but at the time you think to yourself, young boy coming up, wonder what they're saying about me. Pure stupidity. I would never advise any young kid to do that now. But I did it anyway, and that was my reaction. And I probably didn't help myself by doing that, because then more than like, what's he doing to the crowd? But the way it turned out, when I went to Raith Rovers, Morton and Partick Thistle were going for the league, and it didn't matter what happened that season. Every time I played them, I scored against them. I remember running that 5-0 game. I'd scored and I'd ran behind the goal, and they were giving me a stick before I'd scored, and I remember running round giving them the old shoe sign. It was just, but regardless now, even to this day when I go back, whatever team I go back with, they give me stick. That's just the way it is. But I've still got really fond memories of the club because of the chairman and the players that I come through with, like Derek Lilly, for example. He used to take me in, played for Leeds, whatever, top pro. I remember he would pick me up. My house was here and the corner was there, and I think Derek was just trying to get me used to it. He was like, right, I'll meet you at the corner. So every morning I would go, didn't matter rain or snow, I'd stand at the corner until I got there. But one morning I slept in. Derek always went up to my ma's door, chapped the door. My ma's answered the door. Brian, you better get up, there's somebody at the door for you. Derek always at the door, chapped the door to get me out of my bed and waited on me. Do you know what I mean? He was a first class guy, and he was a striker as well, and he was always willing to help me. So guys like that, you've always got fond memories of.
What about Capello as a place to play? Obviously, John's been there with multiple teams as well. What's it like?
To be honest with
you, stadium.
When you go there as a Morton player, and I always remember I was on the bench as a very young boy, and they played Kilmarnock in the Scottish Cup game, and they put them out and they beat them 3-1. The place was rocking.
Paul McGowan
scored, and big Chris Temple. It was, the place was jumping. I was like, how can I know about this sort of time? The atmosphere, you just felt as if you had tunnels of energy. It was an incredible night. I remember playing Celtic there as well. They had the Bumblebee. It was just seeing the back of the stand for Celtic fans, and then it was all Morton fans at the side. It was just like, how can use fans want to turn up for this big game? If you turned up every single second week, and obviously back the club with their season ticket money, the club could get better players. The club could go up the ladder. And at the time, Douglas Ray, he was putting money into the club out of his own pocket.
I remember playing there that was actually my last game for Raith Rovers, the first spell. Was at Capello, which is before we went on holiday. I think you were on the bench, Brian. We were going on holiday the next day. Or you were up in the stand. I think you were injured or you weren't well or something. If I remember that right, with the pinks. No, it was a blue strip. But I've never had any great memories at Capello, to be fair. We tend to struggle there. I always go to my first game of the season.
It's a hard place to go.
Aye, it's very tight for me. For the way my game was, it didn't really. I think I only got one goal there my full career. Not well, obviously, I scored a few with Morton, but I never got many goals against them. You see, touching on a bit, you're talking about like the fans and getting them it back and all that. This is how I came off at Twitter. But it was at Dundee at the time, and a fan was giving me it, and I gave them it back to him on Twitter, and he says, right, I'll meet you outside after the game. And I'm like, bang the keyboard. Aye, bro, aye, let no ball, square go. Next game, the guy was standing outside. That fight. He was about 6'2". So he was about 20 stone. I was like, I'm running down the road at Tannadice to try to get in my motor. This Jimmy Five-Bellies is chasing us. I was like, that's it, delete Twitter. So it did. And then Dundee changed. You get the motors brought into you after that. Yeah, it was.
John, I've got an eye on.
I'll go back.
On you go, mate. I was just going to say I've got an eye on the time because I know that you're kind of up at 5 o'clock in the morning here. So I've got a last wee bit I wanted to ask you both about. We've got a big focus in terms of International Women's Week just passed there. We've had a really nice feature, spent an hour with the Raith Rovers ladies captain. And we're kind of looking at how do we better promote the women's game. Obviously, John, across Australia, you're coaching kids. I'm interested in what work you're doing to make sure that the game's available for wee boys and wee lassies through the ages. And obviously, Brian, you're kind of coaching. Obviously, it's on pause at the moment with COVID with Partick Thistle women's team. What's your views in terms of what more we could do to open the game up to everybody, really?
Well,
I think
it's positive that there's the higher up for the ladies team. They're going to be on TV a lot more, going to be on Sky. I think the Scottish game might be on the BBC Alba channels more often. So young girls growing up now, they've got a chance to see it regularly. It's not just men's football all the time. And these younger girls that want to be professional athletes, professional footballers. And I think the game's only growing in stature, and I think it's only going to get bigger. But from a certain selfish point of view for myself, obviously, with the women's team, the fact that the first division's allowed to go back, but the second division's not allowed to go because of the testing and the funding. But I firmly believe that if the lower leagues in Scotland can go back, and then one of the top league of the women's go back, what about the rest of the girls? It's not an even playing field. It's got to be right across the board where everybody's valued the same. And at this present time, I don't think that's the case. And I think it's got to get better.
Right. Well, touching on the women's side, that main academy, that'll do like a girls only clinic. So I think I've got about, off the top of my head, about 6-7 girls involved in my academy. But the big thing for Australia, they've actually got the World Cup, the Ladies World Cup in 2023. So it's kind of like self-advertising, the ladies game. The ladies is actually more advertised than the men. I don't even know when Perth Glory are playing. You have to search it. You don't get told. It's shocking. The absolute A-League advertisement is absolutely terrible. They have games like at 5:20 on a Monday night at the stadium. How do you expect to get there? The traffic and all that through the city and all that. But the women's is definitely like the club I'm at, Mandurah City. At the moment, they've got 3 ladies teams. So they have 3 ladies teams, and it's getting bigger. There's no doubt that I think when I came here, it was like 9 months ago, 8-9 months ago, they were just assembling one team. So it just shows you. And then obviously, if people are seeing like their parents playing, like their mums playing, stuff like that, they start to follow. But over here, it is getting, but it's a lot more exposure and bigger than what it is back home, definitely.
Brian, is it something that gives you a lot of pleasure? Your role as a kind of manager, really, is wider coaching something that you're looking to move into?
I think it's a role I want to continue going down, but a role I want to go down. But it's, obviously, I'm still playing, but you start to see that other side of it as your manager. People come to you with things that this, that, and the next thing, and there's never a week goes by where something doesn't happen, and you need to do this, you need to do that, and it takes up so much of your time, and you just need to get used to it. Your phone's got to be on 24/7. If any of them need to phone you, because you've got a duty to care to these girls. I know they're adults, but at the same time, they see you as a manager and they still look up to you as such. And but I've got a great relationship with the girls, and we've been doing well this year. We were doing really well, and then me and the coaches, we decided to change it up. We were playing second bottom of the league. We thought a few other girls would try and work hard. We said, well, maybe this is a game we could fit them in. We get beat 1-0. So it was a life lesson that if you keep winning, keep the same team. Because after that, we put it back, and then we went and won the next 3 games, which was good. But that one game getting beat, I think we were second, and we went down to 3rd or 4th, but it's just like a point or a goal difference, because Aberdeen had won every game in the league, but they came to play us and we beat them 5-1 at our place after going 1-0 down, and managed to turn it around. So slowly but surely, I think we're getting the best out of the girls, and I'm gutted because it paused, because I thought we had a real chance of going up.
Right. John, you got any questions for Brian to put out before we wrap things up? I've had my eye on the clock, thinking that an hour was enough to kind of indulge myself here. You know me as a Rovers fan, I've got another 45 questions here, but I'm very grateful for your time. What you want to put across to Brian?
Just keep trying to enjoy your football. Really. Look, I talk to him most Sundays. Stop being a pain in the bum. No, just get your visa and get out here.
There's a nice big coaching job there.
100%. I'm looking forward to when the borders open and stuff like that, and then the big man keep coming out with Nicola in the 2 lanes and have a ball. My wee boy, obviously quite close with Brian's boy, and that they're about the same ages. So
I was walking out the hospital with a baby, and Baird and Natalie were walking in. That was 2 days apart. It was madness. Amazing, just how things. It's mad how things work. Honestly, it's mental. I remember walking out, and you must be away the weekend together.
I'm not going to prize it. I'm not going to pry any of those questions. But John, thanks to yourself. I mean, we kind of hatched this plan at 2:00 in the morning last Saturday. I was about 2:30. We were messaging back and forward to say, let's pull a wee flanker on Brian and try and surprise him.
I actually took me aback tonight, by the way. It took me a couple of seconds to get my words out. I was quite shocked to see him, because I was actually going to text him before I came on, and I went, I'll leave him. It's the middle of the night. He'll not be up his bed. And then I just seen his wee name flash up, and I was shocked, but I was happy to see him.
I was getting up every year. I couldn't quite, obviously after the game. I was I've got this interview, man. I set my alarm. If there's anything that we can kind of do with these interviews in terms of bringing folk together and actually trying to get the message out about the connections that people make in football that are wider than just what happens on the pitch, not only with players, but with fans, with clubs, with managers. And so, of course, we're grateful to John for coming across. Do you see something in John that will make you think that he'll be a really good coach?
Oh, he's got drive. He's always had that. He's just had, even when people knocked him in his career, he always had that drive and belief in himself that he would go and do better. And I think he should have had a better career than what he had. But I think because of his size and probably how his attitude, not his attitude, but the way he was, because he was he's a bit, I'm probably the same as him because I'm moaning like hell on the pitch as well. But maybe people see that in me and him maybe as a negative. But I was quite lucky to get the moves that I got. But I feel as if he should have got better moves and played a lot more in the Premier League. I remember going to watch him at Parkhead with Dundee, and he was brilliant. He played just in the hole behind the striker, and his hold-up play that day was fantastic at Parkhead, and I don't think people realise how good he was.
We would all readily agree with that. Key goals that kind of both of you scored, but it's really just rewarding actually to think that our wee football club is kind of brought together a friendship that will endure well for the rest of your days. So
you'll be a friend for life.
Brilliant. I mean, we'll wish you well, and we'll wish Partick Thistle well. Unlike John's earlier comments, the other half of my family are Partick Thistle fans, so that semi-final was my family's derby. Of course, I'm happy that the Rovers came out on top, but we'll wish you well for the rest of the season, and we'll thank you for joining us. We'll get this up. Yeah, brilliant.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Catch up next time Thistle are up in Kirkcaldy or vice versa. We'll get a chance to extend our gratitude. So on behalf of all the Rovers fans, he scores when he wants. Thanks for your time, mate. We really appreciate it.
See you later. Good night. Thank you. Bye-bye.